The newsletter business is not easy. I've heard so many horror stories. 40 to 50 investors just flat out said like, not a chance. And you kind of have to be a little delusional. I quit my job, they quit their jobs. No money. It felt like everything was gonna crumble right then. All of July, I was in LA networking, pitching, trying to get an investor. I got connected to Howard Lindzon. He asked me to take a call at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. That was like a holy shit moment. We went full time from $1,000 a month to $2,000 to $4,000 to $6,000. Early July 2024, we're doing about $1.25 million a month.
Were there any moments where you're like, this might not work out?
Every day.
How's it going, you guys? So today we're in Los Angeles and we're interviewing my friend Tyler Denk. He's the founder of a business that's worth over $200 million. And we'll be talking about his story, his advice, and how they ultimately built the company that they have today. There's gonna be tons and tons of wisdom in this video, so let's go. Hi, bro. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So name is Tyler Denk. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Beehiiv. We help people send emails and grow and monetize their audience.
And how old are you right now?
I am 30.
Can you tell us about your childhood? How'd you grow up? What hobbies did you have?
Grew up outside Baltimore. Grew up going to camp, played basketball through JV, played lacrosse, played soccer, baseball, everything. Athletic and super competitive, I'd say. Spent most of my time outdoors.
Did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or like, did you have a lemonade stand, anything like that?
Yeah, not like the classic tinkering with computers or like lemonade stand, but always very interested in business, or maybe even better put, very annoyed at things that didn't work well. And so whether it was something dumb like being at a restaurant or like a fast casual spot and not understanding like the order of operations, which was like slowing down the line, to looking at how other businesses were run and having a lot of ideas of how it can be done better. Maybe it's like my OCD, but super into like optimizing things and finding better solutions. I did AP physics in high school, which has actually got me on my trajectory to doing engineering at University of Maryland. And engineering is kind of what opened my world to kind of seeing problems, solutions, formulas, optimization, thinking about how the world works. So it's kind of like a step function from being good at math, being introduced to physics, to being introduced to engineering. And then at University of Maryland, did a lot of classes on entrepreneurship and business.
How'd you get started with this whole business?
I joined Morning Brew way back in 2017 as the second employee. And so started there building, doing a lot of engineering, product and growth related work. I helped build the referral program, built a lot of like different internal tools to help scale Morning Brew as a newsletter. They scaled to about 3.5 million subscribers before getting acquired by Business Insider in 2020. Learned a tremendous amount, understood how valuable it was, as I'm sure you're aware of, having an audience, being able to grow and monetize your audience, and doing it with email newsletters. That's kind of like the backstory of like my experience and foray into email newsletters as a business.
How did Beehiiv come to be?
At Morning Brew, what we did, which was fairly unique, is we kind of built our own ecosystem of tech. We had a well-oiled machine of a custom website, custom newsletter, a CMS that was unique for newsletters, and then an ad management platform that was unique for our team and newsletters. We built all of that in-house. And so there was a lot of interest with the success of Morning Brew of how are we growing quickly? How are we monetizing so efficiently? And I knew the answers because I had built a lot of those solutions. The impetus really came to one, when we would send a newsletter for Morning Brew and print $70,000, $80,000 per day per newsletter. That was like a holy moment of how valuable it is to have emails and how powerful and great of a medium newsletters can be for brands and monetization. The other one was around the time of 2020, I think Substack raised at a $650 million valuation. At the time, I had actually thought what we built at Morning Brew and our small 4-person team was much more performant and had the backing of a successful newsletter to prove it than what they just got valued at for $650 million. So I thought there was like an appetite for like this newsletter wave for better solutions to enter the market, and riding the experience of building that tech, the success story of Morning Brew getting acquired, and then you had Axios, The Hustle, The Skim, all these big newsletters also growing in popularity. It seemed like an opportunity that was like pretty ripe for disruption, and someone to combine great growth tools, great monetization, easy to create content by a team that's done it before previously. And so that's like how we kind of came about the experience and the idea to really launch Beehiiv.
Take us through the first 2 weeks. How much money did it take to start the business? And then what was the whole blueprint?
I left Morning Brew probably 2 to 3 weeks before the acquisition. In that week in between leaving Morning Brew and starting Google, I had COVID, stayed in New York, and had a lot of time on my hands and nothing really to do in between jobs. So I actually reached out to my co-founder, Ben, who was one of the engineers I hired at Morning Brew, saying, I think there was like a huge opportunity in what we had already built, but doing it as a software platform, not for a publisher. So I reached out to him, kind of convinced him, he was on the fence, and he said, if we're gonna do this, my best friend, Jake, who we also hired at Morning Brew, should definitely be a part of it. So on my way out from leaving Morning Brew, we brought in Jake. So those are two software engineers that we had hired at Morning Brew.
So what was the first thing you guys did?
First step was kind of like mapping out what it would look like to even build this platform. It took a lot of convincing. They both are married, have families. It is a little bit more stressful. I was fortunate enough to have a little bit of equity at Morning Brew, just came off the acquisition, and single, living in Brooklyn, and saw the opportunity of what Beehiiv could become. And ultimately what we started doing was meeting once a week on Tuesdays, just talking through, here's what we need to build to get to V1 of this platform. So we were moonlighting, or like working nights and weekends to basically build V1 of Beehiiv while they were full-time at Morning Brew and I was working at Google.
I assume you guys were working and you weren't making anything from this project for a while.
Yeah, no money, basically working two jobs, right? They had their full-time job at Morning Brew. I had my full-time job. After hours, I close my laptop. I open up my personal laptop. I start coding and working. At this time, it's all coding. It's me building stuff. It's them as two engineers coding. They're much better at building than I am, but there's nothing to do at that state of the business. Like, we're not doing sales. We're not doing marketing. There's no platform. It doesn't exist. We're not making money. It truly is just point A to point B. There is so much that we need to build to even be competitive in this market. So we're heads down coding for about 10, 11 months at this point.
When was V1 launched and what did it look like?
I think we kicked off kind of working on it November of 2020. We worked for basically about a full 12 months and went full-time in September of 2021, launched November of 2021.
So what did Beehiiv look like back then?
Terrible. I think most difficult and also most impressive of what we did is like the email space is incredibly competitive and incredibly crowded. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of email senders that have been around for 10, 15, 20 plus years that own a ton of the market. MailChimp got acquired for I think $13 billion. So like large market of people sending emails as a medium. At the same time, Twitter just acquired Review. Facebook just launched Bulletin, which is their newsletter product. So there was also like this new wave of VC-backed email platforms entering the market, and traditional big tech from Twitter and Facebook also kind of in the newsletter space. So kind of like preluding what it looked like to raise capital in this space. There weren't a ton of believers because there's established players, there's new wave media, and then there's big tech getting involved.
What did the whole fundraising process look like?
As much as I admire people who can bootstrap a business, and as much as like there's the pros and cons of VC-backed businesses, we just didn't have the funds to be able to pay our vendors and salary and hire out of our own personal bank accounts. So it became pretty obvious in talking to different vendors that raising capital had to happen. All of July, I was in LA networking, pitching, trying to get an investor. 40 to 50 angel and seed investors just flat out said like, not a chance. Mostly because like, why would you try to recreate Substack? Or there was already market share that has been taken by the incumbent players. And so I got connected to Howard Lindzon, who of Social Leverage, which is like a small seed fund based out of San Diego. He asked me to take a call at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. And I thought he was kind of just with me. Stayed in Saturday night, prepared for that. I had a call and he's like, why don't you come down to San Diego and meet me and my partner? And they ended up leading our seed round, which was $2.6 million. Officially closed that in September. As soon as the money hit the bank, I quit my job. They quit their jobs. We went full-time in September, then launched the product in November.
How'd you fundraise and actually raise money successfully without a product?
I think one of the most valuable things you can do as a founder is be an incredible storyteller. Because one, you are pitching investors on the opportunity of why they should invest. You are pitching potential employees why they should leave their very stable job to join you at this company that's making $2,000 a month, if that. And you kind of have to be a little delusional in the sense that like I've been saying that this is going to be $1 billion business back from when we were making $1,000 a month, partially believing it, partially telling the story of what I think it could become. Most recently, we were valued at $225 million. So like almost a quarter of the way there. And it becomes a bit more believable now. And we are like an admirable company that people want to work for. But in the early days, you have to be so delusional to sell investors. And like, this is the vision. This is how we're going to differentiate. It's not like as transparent as you think. Like no one asked to look at this sheet. They just kind of took my word for it. I think investing in general, especially early stage investing, it's why they call it gambling for the most part. Like there's a lot of trust put into the system and the founders, and it really is built off of reputation. So my pitch was, I had already built this at Morning Brew. Morning Brew is one of the most successful email newsletters. We sold for 75 million. Me and my two co-founders, who are two software engineers at Morning Brew, are now raising money to basically build a better platform to grow, scale, and monetize your audience. And that's that's kind of really the pitch.
And since then, have you guys raised any more money?
So I've said 3 times we're never going to raise again. First, my goal was not to raise, and then we came to the realization we had to raise a bit of money, which was the 2.6 million. Then we start about 8 months later, we had what you consider product market fit. So some growth, we went from $1,000 a month to 2,000 to 4,000 to 6,000. Very quickly, you realize as expenses and costs pile up, and you also want to hire very talented people who are very expensive, we didn't raise enough money. So we raised 1.6 million in May. So that was the extension, so that's 4.2 total. Then fast forward 12 months, we raised the Series A, 12.5 million Series A led by Lightspeed. And I thought that would be it. And then for like the 3rd time in a row, incorrect in just how competitive of a market it is. The goal could be slow and steady growth at the risk of competition kind of encroaching on your territory or out innovating. And so we raised $33 million about 2 months ago on a Series B. This time, most confidently feel we are well capitalized and good to go.
So let's talk revenue. How much has Beehiiv made, and can you take us through like the years?
I'd say the first like 6 to 12 months, we probably grew 25 to 30% month over month. A few $100s the first month, a few $1,000s the next month. Early July 2024, we're doing about $1.25 million a month.
Crazy.
So on pace for about $15 million to $20 million this year. And yeah, it's been pretty linear since. There hasn't been like an inflection moment where we like 5x month over month. It's been a pretty consistent 30 to 40% every single month. As we're getting larger numbers, the growth is probably between 7 to 15% month over month now, but still very consistent.
So how do you guys keep growing?
So a few different things. We have 3 revenue streams. One is just SaaS business. So people pay us monthly or annually to use the software, anything between $49 a month to a few $100s a month, depending on your size. Some of our largest users pay a few $1,000s a month. That's like more enterprise, but recurring revenue like most SaaS businesses. We have an advertising network, which is also one of our big bets. You can almost view it as like the YouTube monetization, but for email newsletters. We have brands like HubSpot, Monday.com, Betterment, BetterHelp, basically trying to get in front of these niche newsletter audiences. And these publishers get access to premium brands without having to do the sales work and copywriting and all of the effort to build an ad-based business. So we are helping premium brands get in front of publishers. We take anywhere between a 10 and 20% cut. That's our second biggest revenue stream. And then third is called Boost. It's basically a recommendation or co-registration network where if I'm offering $3 per email lead, anyone in the ecosystem can send me emails and I would pay them $3. We take a 20%.
So what's the percentage breakdown right now of the 3 revenue streams?
Probably about 70% SaaS, 25% ad network, 5% Boost.
And do you think it's going to stabilize, or in the future it's going to change?
The ad network's definitely growing the fastest. I think that is like a huge bet. So we're sending about 1.5 billion emails a month right now. Most of these publishers want access to premium brands to be able to monetize. Most of these brands want access to very engaged niche audiences promoted by content creators or publishers that people trust. So really just building the Facebook marketplace or the Facebook ad network for email newsletters is kind of like the pie in the sky vision that we're going for. And even going up to our Series A, tons of investors passed on us because they thought we had a nice SaaS business but couldn't build a scalable ad network. And now our ad network is doing about $500,000 a month and growing quicker than any other revenue stream.
Can we talk about the costs of running the business? How much is payroll? How much are you guys getting paid as the founders?
Founders getting paid is definitely part of payroll. We're not the highest paid employees in the company by any stretch. I think early days, we were probably paying ourselves about $100,000 a year. Post Series A, maybe 130, 140. Post Series B, maybe closer to 200. I'm working 80+ hour weeks. The thought that a lot of founders do like the ramen diet, pay themselves very little to show that they're hustling and like prioritizing the business, but also has all these financial worries with like rent and social life or whatever else. I think that's actually like a huge distraction. If I'm an investor, I want my founder to have nothing to worry about than building than building the business, right? But I'd say overall for the business, payroll and software probably make up about 80 to 90% of our monthly costs. We're 75 employees right now across probably 10 or 11 different countries. So globally distributed, fully remote, people working at all hours of the day.
Do you think having a remote work culture has helped the company?
I think the fact that we have an open role for XYZ position and can hire the absolute most talented person, regardless of where they live, is a huge unlock. And I think it's unrealistic to expect if you have an open role that the best person for that role happens to live within a 30-mile radius of your headquarters. So we just had a new product designer position. We hired someone from India. She's incredible. Restricting our workforce to people who live near where we are right now in Los Angeles, I think we'd have half the talent and half the traction that we have.
Why did you choose to live in LA?
So I spent 4 years living in New York. I think New York is one of the best cities in the world. Had the best time networking and building my network there. But when it comes to like personal life now, and especially that I'm so heads down and focused on the business, I've actually found that a lot of my hobbies are the 180 from what I do on a day-to-day for the business. For the business, I'm in my room alone, heads down, 12 to 14 hours, just grinding and stressed. So my hobbies now are hiking, surfing, yoga, being outside. So it's totally a personal thing in terms of where I like to spend my time on weekends and outside of work. And I just think the Southern California lifestyle is pretty elite.
What does your business like structure look like in terms of the different positions?
3 co-founders is how we started, and we had a CTO who unfortunately passed away 6 months after we started the business, but have since had 2 additional CTOs. So we have a CTO, we have a COO, we have a VP of finance, and then we have like team leads, right? So like a head of sales, a head of marketing, a head of growth, a head of talent, a head of customer support. So we have a bunch of different heads of different orgs. I'd say that our largest team by a decent amount is, I guess, tech, which is engineering, data, and product. That makes up probably about 25 to 30 people on the team. And then our other biggest team is customer support, customer success. Just as a SaaS platform and having like 24/7, always being on, always needing to work properly, having a pretty large support team has been pretty helpful for us.
Were there any moments during building the business where you're like, this might not work out?
Every day. We're doing $1.25 million a month. We have 75 people. I think if you hear those high level metrics, you think that's like an established, successful startup. They've like made it out of the trenches. They're not going anywhere. They're growing 10, 15% month over month. Like that is what success in the startup ecosystem looks like. And what I feel on a day-to-day basis is the total opposite. I feel like everything's so fragile. It really does feel like yesterday when, let's say, our CTO passed away and we were doing $10,000 a month and he knew so much about how everything worked. And it felt like everything was going to crumble right then. And until whatever the final state looks like, whether it's an IPO or an acquisition, it feels like it can be taken away from you, which I think is both psychotic and a competitive advantage in the sense of like, we have not taken our foot off the gas whatsoever. We are heads down hustling.
What quality about yourself has allowed the business to grow so much?
One thing I believe in general is there's a lot of things you can't control, but effort is one of the few things you can. I might not be the smartest or most connected person, but I know that I can outwork anyone else. And then I think in terms of priority, like I don't necessarily believe in work-life balance, and I actually get more anxiety from being away from my computer. Like that isn't always a refresh for me, and I am pretty tunnel vision locked in to saying I'm okay sacrificing dinners on Tuesdays with friends or like a Sunday afternoon at the beach if it means pushing the business forward. And like there's definitely ups and downs with that, but I think that's a trade-off and acceptance I made very early on, and I think that drive kind of rubs off in a lot of the culture on the team.
What tools do you use in your business to run it?
We use Linear, which is like a project management tracking, so kind of like an Asana type thing, but we all have like our different project management type tools that we use to like sync and communicate async. It's pretty light. I mean, outside of that, it's like very tech heavy, right? So like the different like engineering stuff that they use, but more or less you can probably boil it down to Google products. We use Slack, we use Google Meet, and then everyone kind of uses like their own tech for like project management and everything else.
So what mistakes have you made building the business and how did you fix it?
I think the biggest mistake, it's like the classic first time founder or just like a people thing in general, is realizing when you need to move on from a bad hire. We've had people that come in day one and you know they're a killer. They're overachievers, they're crushing everything that they're assigned. They have like that it factor that you really need in a small startup. There's other people that come rocky out of the gate and you kind of make excuses to yourself as to maybe we gave them like a bad onboarding experience. And I think the advice that most founders would agree on is being able to move on from a bad hire as soon as possible. That's something I think we've done a few times and really dragged our feet. And anytime that we've had the discussion of maybe this person's underperforming and we should move on from them, we would buy time and excuses for a few months and eventually we would always let go of them.
What is it like building a business with co-founders?
I would do it 10 out of 10 times. So I have like my side project, which is like my newsletter, playlist type ordeal. There's something to be said about, especially with my vision and drive, to like only be responsible for myself and not depend on other people. But for building this business, it would not have gotten anywhere to where we are without the 2 co-founders, Ben and Jake. There was a lot of comfort in knowing even if we could hire no one else or if everyone left and quit, we had 3 engineers that could keep building features and keep the lights on to keep building the business. But at the end of the day, they're incredible. We have one of the rare startup stories and experiences where like we don't fight ever. We've had 0 big fights, and I would highly recommend if you can do the whole co-founder dating compatibility, know that you are going to minimize fights. You have like the same expectations of each other. Having a co-founder is like an incredible unlock.
So how are you guys getting new clients every single day?
We are very adamant about advertising the fact that you can make money with Boost, with premium subscriptions, with the ad network. And so when people promote their success of saying, hey, I just made $10,000 last month from the Beehiiv ad network, that in itself is kind of an advertisement for us. We actually did a lot of product-led growth and built the foundation that with our current users, making them happy, and within the product, we can kind of share what Beehiiv is and what value it can provide to potential new users. Outside of that, we have a small but mighty sales team of about like 4 people, classic enterprise sales, doing demos, onboarding people, coaching users that are using other platforms. And then we have an also small but mighty, we call it growth, 4 to 5 people, growth and marketing kind of under the same umbrella. But that is everything from deploying campaigns on Facebook, Instagram, Google, paying for other newsletters, everything of the sort. And then you can mix like partner program, which is our affiliate program, and SEO into the mix as well.
What's worked the best in terms of marketing?
Organic, for sure. Scale is definitely in paid, right? So it's the reason why Facebook and Google are such valuable companies. If you can understand your value prop and target the right people, you can turn that knob and continue to pay more and more money to acquire more traffic and more signups. And that's something we've gotten really good at recently. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of startups jump right into paid acquisition before really having product market fit or like organic growth channels that we've already built into the product. So the fact that we went 12 months without paying $1 for acquisition before we even had a salesperson to sell it is what I think is a smarter approach to growth.
So what does a day in the life look like for you?
My roommate makes fun of me because I am so routine oriented. I kind of think as a founder who's trying to squeeze 14 hours of productivity out of your day, you have to be very regimented. So I wake up around 5:30 every morning, catch up on emails quickly, unblock people, pretty like non-negotiable hour in the gym every morning, come back, shower, and I'd say between 7:30, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. I'm pretty much here. I just make the same food every day, so I don't have to think about grocery shopping or doing other things.
What are some hot takes you have in business?
I think it's such an advantage to be able to hire globally and have people work in their own comfortable space around the clock on their own schedule. So flexibility and remote work, I'm huge on. We have 2 focus days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, where there's 0 meetings, internal, external. It's a total pain in the ass to have to jump out of building something to a meeting to talk about something else, to another meeting to talk about something else, and then go back to what you were doing before. So we did focus days on Wednesday, and everyone raved that that's the only day they got things done. So now we do it Tuesday and Thursday, and it's by far the most productive 2 days of the week.
What's the future of Beehiiv look like the next 5 to 10 years?
I think 6 months ahead. It is where are we now and where do we need to be 6 months from now, because so much can change. I know how much money we're spending on acquisition. I know who we're hiring, and I know that we should end up at $1.8 million a month by the end of Q3. And then we'll focus on Q4 and hit our next objective. I think a lot of founders look for this silver bullet of like an unlock that's just going to completely change the business, and some find it. But I think for us, it's like being very realistic. If there's any ambitious thing that I would predict, it's if companies can look at Beehiiv as the place to acquire new users or new customers via email, then I think hopefully we can be in the same conversation as a Facebook and Google in a few years.
How much are people making with the newsletter?
Varies, right? So it can be total hobbyist just because you enjoy writing to passive income of a few $100s a week. There are individual newsletters, like individual operators that are making $300,000 to $400,000 a year on the platform. The newsletter business is not easy. Like there's a lot that you have to do. You also have to create content, but there are tools and platforms like us that make it a lot easier to have a website, to have a good looking newsletter. And we are empowering our users via the different features and monetization opportunities to make more money.
So any final advice you want to give the audience?
I'd say co-founders are the biggest unlock and superpower if you do it correctly. I've heard so many horror stories of co-founders fighting, taking company, leaving, whatever it may be. So finding the right partner, like they say it's like a marriage for a reason, finding partners that have the same vision and drive as you can be the greatest unlock. The other one, we raised our $12.5 million Series A in 1 week because we had been sending investor updates. They said, I've seen 6 months of how you think about the business, how you've grown, what you're prioritizing, and watching you execute. Like, we want to invest in that business. It gives investors and people a glimpse into how you think about the business and how you're growing the business, which in turn makes it a lot easier for them to write a check and invest in you because you've kind of already open sourced all of that.
One thing you guys will notice is that Tyler uses a lot of overseas talent. They have 75 employees spread across the world. And if you are looking for overseas talent for your own business, make sure to check out Paired, which is my overseas staffing company. We'll find you the top 1% of overseas talent, and you'll save 80 to 90% on payroll costs. We've done this for hundreds of clients, and we'd love to work with you. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I learned a ton talking to Tyler, and it's just so cool seeing young guys like this build companies that are worth over $200 million. It's a lot different than what I do with my businesses, but I definitely learned a ton of different things, which I will implement. So yeah, hopefully you guys learned something too. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe for more content just like this. I make a ton of videos about personal finance, entrepreneurship, and investing. All right, that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.